There is something strange and a bit eerie about the lobby at Selden Animal Emergency, whose walls are painted a soothing, salmon-like color. Not one person is there waiting. A dark-haired receptionist named Jean sits behind a glass window.
When clients come through the door with a pet that's sick or seemingly injured, I take a look to see if the animal seems stable. Then I get one of the technicians from the back to take a look and see if we need to bring the pet back for treatment.
Although things seem quiet up front in the lobby at AES, behind the scenes is where you will find a completely different atmosphere. There is a wooden door separating Jean from the vets and technicians who work in the back. As it swings open, you can hear the whimper of Dodo, a black Labrador mix who's suffering from a pyromitra, something the average person would refer to as a uterine infection. It is around 5 a.m. when Karen Lorado receives a phone call from Comac Animal Emergency, Selden's sister hospital. Molly, an 11-year-old Shepherd Pit Bull mix, has lost a massive amount of blood during a surgery done at her local vet office.
Sometimes one of the complications is they bleed so much that their red blood cell count drops, and this one's coming in with a 6% when usually you want it to be over 25 if it comes here and needs a blood transfusion.
Most cases that come into AES are emergencies, some more serious than others. One 4-year-old Crane Terrier isn't too happy to be lying in a bed of donated blankets, but it's the mischief that she got herself into that landed her behind bars.
Silly little Tilly got into some sugarless Trident gum, which has xylitol, and that will actually cause them to have low blood sugar and can be very harmful.
Although a great deal of animals that come into the emergency hospital have a significant chance of survival, they are not all as lucky as dogs like Molly and Tilly. Karen Lorado finds these cases especially difficult.
You do surgery on an animal, and you're there monitoring them, and everything goes well during surgery, and then a couple days later they die from just post-op complications.
Whether or not an animal is rushed in with a life or death situation, the owner is required to fill out various forms upon arrival, some harder than others.
For every case that comes in, they have to fill out 2 forms. The first form is the CPR DNR form, which is CPR or do not resuscitate, and the owners have to choose if their animal is crashing, do they want us to try to bring him back or to just let him go.
In bold, italic letters, the words "payment is due at time services are rendered, no exceptions," is printed across the top of the first form.
It's just the exam fee alone is $95. After that, everything's additional. For basic blood work, x-rays, just to find out what's going on, it's a good $500.
For most people, seeing owners struggle with payment is the worst part of the job.
We get a lot of threats with people that are very angry and say we're all going to go to hell for doing this to their pet and not treating their pet, but really we can't treat their pet because they don't have any money, which is a sad world.
When you see a client who doesn't have the funds to take care of the pet the way they wish to, that's all we said when they have to make the decision to put a pet to sleep just because they can't afford it.
Dealing with the unhappy situations has become second nature to those who work at AES. But every once in a while, a somewhat amusing case walks through the door.
One time we did surgery on a dog that had a foreign body. It ate something. And so they went in, they found thong panties, which did not belong to the wife.
One time we had a guy who the dog ingested a certain amount of pills of different types, and he happened to be a bouncer, and his mom brought the dog in, and he wouldn't tell us. So he called an hour later to tell us that he might have taken these drugs because they were in his pocket, because somebody gave them to him at the club. So
being able to laugh every so often is a treat, especially for the vet technicians who work in the back. Although tragedy and death is something that comes with the job, it's the cases that put a smile on their faces that makes the job truly worthwhile.
We had a C-section, and usually with C-sections, the dogs aren't breathing on their own, so you kind of have to stimulate them to breathe. And I remember there was one particular one, it was 3-legged, it had one deformed one. And one of the girls here actually took him, and she just brought him in the other day, and he's doing great on his 3 legs.
One of my favorite cases was a young Akita. It was a 6-month-old dog that had been spayed, and it chewed out its stitches. The owners had kind of watched this happen over the course of a day, not realizing what was going on, and they came home from somewhere to find the dog had basically eviscerated itself and chewed through most of its own intestines. I was fortunate enough to have a surgery technician be in that morning, and long story short, with her micromanaging the anesthesia and us having 2 catheters in and doing all the right things, the dog survived and went home 2 days later.
The ability to save an animal's life is just one of the many benefits that the employees at AES get to experience. It's the unique cases that come into the clinic that prevent them from ever working anywhere else.
We have 3 open runs, had deers in here and snapping turtles, and also swans. They can get pretty nasty.
I like the speed of everything. I like to do everything fast, and the fact that most of the time we get a quick turnaround and quick results, and we see that people come out happy.
One would think that the doctors at Selden Animal Emergency would prefer the easy, less chaotic route, but Dr. Patricia Wagner wouldn't have it any other way.
It just really keeps you on your toes. You have to think about how you're going to approach that case. It's not the same thing that you saw half an hour ago. A lot of them are just animals that are so sick, and there's a lot of reward in just making them better.
The thrill of a new case can be exciting for Dr. Wagner, but there are things that come about that she finds rather challenging.
The downside is certainly not having an established history, not knowing precisely what the animal is on or has been getting or what its history has been, and also getting an owner to trust you.
There are many animal emergency clinics that are open 24 hours, 7 days a week. Selden Animal Emergency is one of them. So whether it's Thanksgiving, Christmas, or New Year's, the employees are there to help. Even if you think the predicament is a bit strange, it's most likely something they have all seen before.